SpaceX recently launched a third Starship booster combination. This time the rocket made it to space, separated the booster from the second stage, but neither part of the rocket made it back to Earth intact. This was hailed as enormous progress. Elon Musk has announced he plans to do 6 more launches this year. Let me curb your enthusiasm. Why does iterative development work for software projects? Here are a few reasons. Software can be developed module by module. In principle, because each module can be tested separately, you can do this in any order. But in most projects, it's done in a more logical order. Because software is developed module by module and tested module by module, at least in well-managed projects, relatively few things should go wrong with each iteration. Except for new features being implemented, you shouldn't need to have hundreds of changes from one iteration to the next just to fix problems. We'll touch on there being too many changes between iterations for it to work well for a rocket, and Elon isn't about to reflect on whether his approach might need to change. Instead, we'll turn our focus to the critical path. The critical path is the longest path through tasks in a project. You might have heard it referred to as the long pole in the tent. It determines how long it will take for you to complete your project. This is why, for projects that have strong dependencies between tasks, you do a critical path analysis to determine if there are too many dependent tasks between where you stand and project completion. It can get worse than there just being a long and complicated critical path. If each task on that path is hard to estimate, then the variability of your critical path goes way up. Specifically, if you're using an iterative approach to problems that are untested and unsolved, each step along the critical path could take 1, 2, 3, or more times the amount of time that it takes to perform an individual iteration. An example of this problem is what we saw in the current test flight, where the Starship couldn't be stabilized for re-entry and burned up. Will it take one more test flight to fix that? Maybe 2. And you can't start trying to catch a Starship with the launch tower chopsticks until re-entry becomes reliable. How many tries will that take? And then, somewhere down the road, orbital refueling. Within the orbital refueling task, there are subtasks demonstrating that orbital refueling is possible at all, and then demonstrating that enough Starship tankers can be launched in a short enough time. What if orbital refueling tankers need to be rapidly reusable? Then we're pretty far down the road to complete Starship functionality before a Starship can be refueled in orbit. Not only does SpaceX not know the length of the critical path, they don't know which possible critical path is the longest. Will 6 more Starships fly this year? No. Will the result of other test flights this year clarify what the actual critical path is and how long it is? Maybe we might see that later on this year. It is also possible that the critical path is too long to remain relevant to the Artemis moon landing project, or that Starship iterations never converge on a completed rocket.